My name is Janine, and I'm 56 years old, and my life was torn apart the moment my daughter-in-law turned the internet against me. If someone had told me a few years ago that my name would be dragged through the mud online, that strangers would call me a monster, a manipulative mother, and a toxic woman, I would have laughed. I've spent most of my life teaching high school English, shaping young minds, and doing my best to live quietly. My son, Mark, was my pride and joy. I raised him alone after his father passed away when he was just 8. When he married Brianna 2 years ago, I thought it was the happiest day of my life. She was bright, charming, and always seemed to know how to light up a room. I remember telling my best friend that Brianna was the daughter I never had. If only I knew what was coming. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a phone call from my neighbor, Denise. Her voice was trembling when she said, "Janine, have you seen what Brianna posted on Facebook?" I had no idea what she meant, so I opened my phone, still smiling, thinking maybe Brianna had shared a family photo or something about their new house. But the second I clicked on her profile, my smile froze. There it was, a long, emotional post with my picture at the top. It started with, "I never wanted to say this publicly, but I can't take the emotional abuse anymore." Then it went on to describe me as manipulative, controlling, and mentally unstable. She accused me of gaslighting, her of trying to ruin her marriage. She claimed I'd been sneaking into their home, spying on their relationship, and spreading lies about her to the neighbors. I couldn't breathe. It was like watching someone else's life crumble in slow motion. My hands shook as I scrolled through hundreds of comments from people, strangers calling me every name imaginable. Typical toxic mother-in-law, let your son live his life, women like her are why families fall apart. Denise tried to calm me down, saying maybe it was a misunderstanding, but I knew Brianna had written those words carefully. Every sentence was crafted to sound believable, emotional, but calculated. And the worst part? The post had already been shared more than 1,000 times in local groups. I could feel my reputation, the one I'd built over decades, slipping away with every share, every hateful comment. That night, I called Mark. I expected outrage, confusion, maybe even a defense of me. But his voice was quiet, uncertain. "Mom, maybe it's better if you just let things cool down for a while," he said. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mark, you don't believe her, do you?" I asked, my voice cracking. There was a long pause. Then he said, "I just don't want to get in the middle of this." That sentence broke something inside me. My own son, the boy I raised, the one I worked 3 jobs to support, didn't want to get in the middle. I hung up before I started crying. The following days were hell. Every morning, I'd wake up to new posts. New stories she'd made up, screenshots supposedly showing messages I'd sent her, begging her to leave my son. Text exchanges where I called her names I'd never even uttered. They were all fake, but no one cared. People believe what fits their narrative, and online, truth is whatever gets the most reactions. I stopped going to the grocery store because people would whisper when I walked by. Some of my former students unfollowed me, and others sent me messages saying they were disappointed. I hadn't done anything wrong, yet I was the villain in a story I didn't even know I was part of. I tried to stay quiet, thinking it would all blow over. I convinced myself that if I ignored it, the internet would move on to its next target. But it didn't. Each lie Brianna told built on the last, and soon, people started tagging her in videos, saying how brave she was for standing up to an abusive mother-in-law. She gained thousands of followers overnight. It wasn't just gossip anymore, it was her brand. I spent sleepless nights replaying every interaction we'd ever had. Had I said something wrong? Done something that could be twisted? The only thing I could think of was the time I gently suggested they slow down before buying a house, advice she clearly didn't appreciate. But that couldn't justify this level of hate. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Brianna wasn't just trying to hurt me emotionally. She was crafting a public image, a victim story where I was the villain. And she was thriving off it. I remember sitting on my couch one night, scrolling through yet another post where she called me a narcissistic manipulator, when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, assuming it was another cruel comment. But when I glanced at the screen, I saw a message request from someone I didn't know. The profile picture was just a black circle. The name read, Cypher. The message said, "You don't know me, but you deserve to know the truth about Brianna." I froze, my heart thudding. Who would message me about her? What truth could possibly be left to uncover? I stared at the message for what felt like forever, my finger hovering over the delete button. It could have been a scam. It could have been another setup. But something inside me, maybe desperation, maybe instinct, told me not to ignore it. And that night, when I finally decided to open that message, I had no idea it would change everything I thought I knew about my daughter-in-law and my son. It was from someone named Cypher, and the message simply read, "You deserve to know the truth about Brianna." I must have stared at those words for a full minute, unsure whether to laugh or panic. My heart pounded in my chest. Who would contact me out of nowhere? Using a name like that? Cypher, it sounded like something from a spy movie, not real life. My first thought was that it had to be some kind of scam. After everything I'd been through online, I wasn't about to fall for a phishing trick or a fake sympathy scheme. I locked my phone and tried to forget about it, telling myself it was nothing. But as the night dragged on, I couldn't stop thinking about that message. You deserve to know the truth about Brianna. The words replayed in my mind like an echo I couldn't silence. What truth? What could possibly make any of this make sense? The next morning, I woke up early, my stomach tight with unease. I made myself some coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the glow of my phone screen pulling at my attention like a magnet. Against my better judgment, I opened the message again. There was now a second one beneath it. "Don't ignore me," it read. "I have proof of what she's done." My hand shook as I scrolled down. Attached to the message were 3 screenshots. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then I saw Brianna's profile picture, her name, and her messages in a private chat. My blood ran cold. In the screenshots, she was laughing about how easily she'd convinced people I was crazy. She said things like, "It's too easy. She doesn't even have social media to defend herself," and, "The more pitiful I act, the more followers I get." In one, she even bragged, "I'll make her look like the kind of woman who ruins her own family. People eat that up online." My mouth went dry. I reread them over and over again, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. Was this real? Could someone have faked these too? Then another message from Cypher came through. "This is just the beginning," he wrote. "I've seen what she's been doing. I can prove she's been manipulating not just you but your son and everyone around her. She's not who she says she is." I typed back, "Who are you?" The reply came almost instantly. "Someone who wants to help you. Someone she hurt." That made me pause. My first instinct was still suspicion for all I knew. This could be another trap. But the detail in those screenshots was too specific, too real. I could see Brianna's tone, her writing style, even the way she used emojis. I'd seen her type like that before in family chats. Whoever Cypher was, they weren't making this up easily. "I don't understand," I typed. "Why are you showing me this?" His response came in 3 separate messages, each one colder than the last. "Because she lied to everyone. Because she's hiding something much bigger than you think. And because you're the only one who can stop her." I felt a chill crawl down my spine. This was spiraling into something darker than I could have imagined. Cypher sent me another file. This one was a PDF with dozens of screenshots. My hand hesitated over the download button, but I clicked it anyway. Inside were pages and pages of messages between Brianna and a small group chat labeled Influencer HQ. My jaw dropped as I read through the conversations. They talked about fabricating stories, using family drama to boost engagement, and creating content arcs that revolved around fake betrayals. Brianna's name was all over the messages. She was the one suggesting storylines like "my controlling mother-in-law" and "toxic family nightmare." In one message, she even said, "I've got a live one. She's gullible, emotional, perfect for the villain role." And then she attached my photo. I pushed my chair back and covered my mouth. I couldn't breathe. I had become a character in her online soap opera, her fictional antagonist, created for likes and sympathy. Cypher messaged again. I told you, she's not just a liar, she's building a brand off your pain. But that's not even the worst of it. I didn't want to know more. Part of me wanted to shut my laptop, delete every message, and pretend I'd never seen any of it. But curiosity, or maybe justice, burned inside me. What else did she do? I asked. Cypher's reply came after a few moments. She's stealing. From your son, from her sponsors, from people online. I've seen the transactions. But you can't confront her yet. If you do, she'll destroy everything before I can expose her. That word destroy sent a shiver through me. This wasn't just about lies anymore. This was calculated, deliberate, and dangerous. I wanted to ask how Cypher had gotten all this information, but he must have anticipated the question. He sent one last message before going silent. Let's just say I know how to look where others can't. Keep everything I send you. Don't trust anyone, not even Mark. You'll understand soon. I stared at the chat for what felt like an hour. The room spinning slightly as my mind tried to make sense of it all. My instincts told me I was treading into something far beyond family drama, something bordering on criminal. But even with fear gripping me, I couldn't deny what I felt underneath it. A flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this stranger could help me clear my name. And when Cypher sent the next file later that night, I realized this wasn't just about online lies, it was about uncovering the darkest truth my family had ever faced. The folder was labeled Project M. When I saw the file name appear in my inbox, my stomach twisted into knots. It arrived late at night, no message, no warning. Just that cryptic name and a download link. I hesitated for several minutes, staring at it as the quiet hum of my refrigerator filled the room. Every instinct screamed at me to leave it alone. But after everything Cypher had already shown me, I couldn't look away. I needed to know what else Brianna was hiding. I clicked the link. A zip file downloaded slowly, almost taunting me. When it finally opened, I saw folders upon folders of screenshots, text logs, and even short video clips. I started with the one labeled Chat Evidence. The messages inside made my blood run cold. In one thread, Brianna bragged to someone about her audience growth. She wrote, "The posts about Janine got way more traction than anything else. I knew playing the victim would sell." Another message said, "She's too old and polite to fight back, perfect storyline." I covered my mouth with my hand. This wasn't random gossip. This was strategy. She was deliberately manufacturing conflict to build her online brand using me as the villain in her ongoing content series. Every post, every fake update, was part of her calculated rise as an influencer. I scrolled further down and saw a spreadsheet listing her follower counts, engagement rates, and notes on upcoming story arcs. The last entry said, Project M, MIL mother-in-law breakdown aim for emotional viral content. The M in Project M suddenly made sense. It stood for me. It was as if my entire life had been turned into her marketing campaign. She'd commodified my heartbreak, turned my humiliation into clicks and sponsorships. I felt tears sting my eyes, but beneath the grief, anger began to burn. This woman had invaded my family, poisoned my son against me, and used me as a stepping stone for fame. But what came next made my fury turn to horror. Cypher sent another message as I was still reading. "You should see the next folder. Watch the videos." My hand trembled as I clicked into the clips folder. The thumbnails made my stomach churn. They were all labeled with dates when Brianna and Mark had visited me. I opened one. It was a video of me in my own kitchen, serving dinner. The angle was strange, hidden, almost as if from a camera placed behind the spice rack. The video captured me talking to Brianna about her new job. My voice was calm, gentle, asking simple questions. But the version she'd later uploaded online, I realized, was edited. In her post, she'd cut out her own words, inserted clips out of order, and made it look like I was criticizing her. I wasn't paranoid after all. She had actually been filming me secretly for months, turning innocent moments into twisted evidence of abuse. The next video showed me handing her a wrapped birthday gift. She'd titled it, "My MIL Tried to Buy My Forgiveness." I couldn't finish watching. I felt sick, violated. The walls around me suddenly felt unsafe. Had she planted cameras in my home? How had I never noticed? I messaged Cypher immediately. "How did you get these?" His reply came seconds later. She stored them all in her cloud account. She kept backups. People like her always do. Then another message followed. "She's part of a group. They share these kinds of videos, stories, and tactics. You're not the first mother-in-law she's targeted." That last sentence stopped me cold. Not the first. I sat there in silence, the glow of my laptop screen washing over me as I tried to wrap my head around what I was learning. Cypher explained that he'd stumbled upon her files while investigating a network of influencers who traded fake family drama stories for mutual growth. It was all coordinated, planned drama cycles, sympathy campaigns, and cross-promotion deals. Brianna wasn't a victim of social media cruelty. She was its architect. I began to save everything, every screenshot, every file. I created backup folders on a flash drive and hid them in my desk drawer. If this ever went to court, I'd need all the proof I could get. But Cypher wasn't done. He sent one more message. One that sent chills racing down my spine. "She's lying to your son too. She's been using his accounts. His money." I froze. "What do you mean?" I typed back. Cypher replied with a single image, a screenshot of an email receipt from an online payment service. It showed Brianna's name next to a transfer of $4,800, but the sender's name was my son's. "She's been moving his money into fake business accounts," Cypher explained. "She claims it's for sponsorship deals. It's not. I've tracked it. She's laundering influencer income through personal accounts and covering her tracks with lies." My pulse pounded in my ears. I wanted to call Mark immediately, to scream at him to wake up, but Cypher warned me again. "Don't say anything yet. She's smart. If she suspects, she'll erase everything." I'm still collecting evidence. Wait. I wanted to trust him, but part of me wondered if I was getting in too deep. None of this felt real. I was a retired schoolteacher, not some detective unraveling cybercrime. But how could I stop? My son's future was at stake. I sat back, rubbing my temples, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. For the first time, I understood the true scope of Brianna's deceit. This wasn't a misunderstanding or petty online drama. This was manipulation at its purest form. A psychological and digital trap that had ensnared me and everyone I loved. I stared at the folder one last time, my reflection ghosted across the dark laptop screen. Project M. I was her project, her plotline, her pawn. But not anymore. Because Cypher had just promised me there was one last secret about Brianna, one even my son didn't know, and once I learned it, he said, everything would fall apart. I asked Cypher why he was helping me, and his answer left me speechless. After the revelations about Brianna's lies and financial scams, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smiling face, that polished, picture-perfect grin she wore in all her influencer posts. But now, all I could see behind it was manipulation and greed. I knew I needed Cypher's help to go further, yet I also knew how dangerous it was to trust someone I'd never met. So, the next morning, I finally asked him directly, "Why are you helping me? What do you get out of this?" It took him a while to respond. I watched the 3 dots on the screen blink in and out, as if he was choosing his words carefully. Then he replied, "Because she destroyed me first." That was not the answer I expected. He went on to explain that years ago, he had been part of the same influencer community Brianna belonged to. He was a digital marketer and web security consultant, the kind of person who helped creators protect their online brands. Back then, he'd been close to her. Very close. "She used me," he wrote. "Just like she's using your son. She built her fame off my work, and then ruined my reputation to keep me quiet." I leaned forward, rereading his words over and over again. He claimed that when he tried to expose her for lying about her online success, she retaliated by leaking his private information, personal photos, addresses, even banking details. It ruined him. He lost clients, his job, and nearly everything he owned. So now this is revenge? I asked. No, he wrote after a pause. This is justice. You deserve the truth, and she deserves exposure. Something in his tone, even though it was just text on a screen, felt both sincere and unnerving. He sent me another message. You've seen her public lies. You've seen the fake stories. But what if I told you she's not just deceiving the internet? She's breaking laws. And she's close to being caught. My heart pounded as I read the next lines. Cypher claimed he had been monitoring her activities for months, tracing her financial patterns and sponsorship agreements. He said she had multiple hidden accounts under fake names, through which she was funneling money from brand deals that she never fulfilled. Some of the companies she scammed didn't even know they'd been duped yet. Then he sent me screenshots of invoices. The names on them looked legitimate real marketing firms and social media brands, but the payment accounts all led to anonymous wallets. She fabricates brand deals, he explained. Then she creates fake proofs of delivery, pockets the money, and deletes the evidence. It's a scam operation disguised as content creation. I stared at the documents, horrified. Brianna wasn't just manipulating emotions for clout, she was stealing, deceiving, and building her online empire on lies. But even then, a small part of me still questioned Cypher's motives. If this is all true, I typed, why not go straight to the police? His answer was immediate. Because they won't listen to someone like me. I don't exist legally anymore. She made sure of that. That sentence stopped me cold. What did he mean by that? He continued before I could ask. I'm not doing this for money or fame. I'm doing it because she's done this before to other families, to other people who didn't deserve it. You're just the latest. I've seen enough. A chill ran down my spine. Other families. How many? How many people had she manipulated, ruined, or stolen from to keep her online persona spotless? Cypher told me he was gathering final proof documents that tied Brianna's fake sponsorships to her personal accounts. He said once he had them, he'd make sure she could never lie again. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to believe him, but a small voice inside me whispered that this was all too convenient. Why would a stranger devote months to tracking her? Why involve me? Then he sent one last message for the night. You're not the first person she's destroyed, but you can be the one to end her cycle. I stared at that message long after he went offline. The words felt heavy, like both a warning and a responsibility. The next few days passed in a haze. I barely ate, barely slept, and jumped every time my phone buzzed. Brianna continued posting more self-pitying videos about her abusive mother-in-law. Each time, I watched in disbelief as people flooded her comments with hearts and messages of support. They had no idea the woman they were defending was a fraud. Then one evening, Cypher messaged again. His tone this time was different, colder, sharper. I'm close, he said. But I need you to trust me. Don't tell anyone I exist, not even your lawyer. I'm sending you a preview of what's next. A file popped up encrypted, with the name Evidence 2 Final. I hesitated before opening it. Inside were several screenshots showing emails between Brianna and her brand partners. The subject lines were professional invoice adjustment, campaign results, sponsorship fulfillment, but the attachments told a darker story. They were forged. She'd copied company logos, changed invoice numbers, and forged entire email threads. It was elaborate, almost professional-level fraud. My hands shook as I scrolled through the files. There was no doubt now, Brianna wasn't just morally corrupt, she was criminally deceptive. Then Cypher messaged one final time that night. I'm going dark for a while, he wrote. Need to verify something. Don't panic if I don't respond. And don't talk to anyone. You'll understand soon. Before I could ask what he meant, his profile picture disappeared. The chat icon turned gray, account inactive. He was gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. For days, there was nothing, no updates, no new messages, just me and the horrible knowledge of what Brianna had been doing. I didn't know if Cypher had been caught, if he'd abandoned the mission, or if something worse had happened. All I knew was that my world had become too quiet. And in that suffocating quiet, I began to realize maybe Cypher wasn't the only one watching her. Maybe someone else was watching me, too. Days passed without a word from Cypher, and I started to think I'd imagined everything. The chat window sat open on my phone like an empty wound. His last message frozen in place. The gray, inactive icon mocking me. I refreshed it dozens of times a day, hoping to see that green dot appear beside his name, a small sign that he was back. But it never came. At first, I tried to convince myself he was just taking precautions. Maybe he needed to cover his tracks, maybe something had gone wrong. But as hours turned into days, my confidence began to crack. What if he'd set me up? What if all those files, the evidence, the messages had been faked? The thought made my chest tighten. I spent those first few nights pacing my house, jumping at every sound. The shadows seemed darker somehow. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would leap, only for it to be another hateful comment or a spam notification. The internet still thought I was a monster, and without Cypher's updates, I had no plan to clear my name. Meanwhile, Brianna wasn't slowing down. Her posts had taken a new turn now. She claimed I was harassing her. In one of her latest videos, she sat on her couch, eyes red as if she'd been crying. "I just want peace," she sniffled. But she won't stop. She keeps emailing me, stalking my social media, showing up uninvited. All lies. Every single word. I hadn't contacted her once since this started. But it didn't matter. The comments section was full of sympathy. "You're so strong, girl. Don't let that old witch break you. We believe you." I wanted to scream at the screen, to tell them the truth. But what good would that do? I had no proof anyone would accept, not without Cypher. The stress began to eat away at me. I stopped going outside. I ignored calls from friends. Even my lawyer's messages piled up unanswered. Every corner of my home felt tainted by paranoia. Sometimes I'd swear I heard footsteps outside late at night, only to find nothing there. On the fifth night, without a word, I opened a bottle of wine and sat by the window, staring at the empty street. My mind raced through worst-case scenarios. Had Cypher been caught? Or worse, had Brianna found out and silenced him somehow? The thought chilled me to my core. I almost dropped my glass when my phone pinged. The screen lit up with a new email. No sender name, no subject, just one word in the title: proof. I hesitated before opening it. The message body was blank except for one image attachment. I clicked it, and the photo loaded slowly, pixel by pixel. My breath caught in my throat. It was Brianna, standing in a dimly lit parking lot, glancing over her shoulder. In her hand, a thick white envelope. She was handing it to a man I didn't recognize, tall, wearing a hooded sweatshirt, his face mostly hidden. The timestamp in the corner showed it was taken 2 nights ago. There was no text, no explanation, just that single image. My hands shook as I enlarged it, looking for details, a license plate, a store sign. Anything. But there was nothing that gave away the location. Was Cypher the one who sent it? Or someone else entirely? I saved the image to my hard drive and printed a copy, hiding it inside a book in my study. I didn't know what it meant, but instinct told me it was important. My mind spun with possibilities. Was she paying someone off? Meeting another accomplice? By the next morning, the paranoia had settled into my bones. Every noise outside made me flinch. I started locking my doors twice and keeping my curtains drawn at all hours. I barely ate. My reflection in the mirror looked like a ghost, pale, tired, and haunted. Then, just as I started convincing myself I was losing my mind, there was a knock at my door. 2 uniformed police officers stood outside. My stomach dropped. "Mrs. Lawson?" one of them asked politely. "We received a report we need to discuss with you." I stepped aside, heart racing. "What's this about?" The officer looked uncomfortable as he glanced at his clipboard. "We've had a complaint filed against you for harassment and online threats." I stared at him, stunned. "What?" "Your daughter-in-law, Brianna," he continued carefully, "says you've been contacting her from multiple fake accounts, posting about her online, and following her in public. I almost laughed, it was too absurd. That's not true. I haven't done anything like that. They asked to see my phone and social media accounts. I handed everything over willingly. One of the officers scrolled through my messages, nodding. You seem cooperative, he said finally. But we're required to issue a formal warning. If she reports further incidents, we'll have to investigate. I felt faint. So she's winning, I whispered. They exchanged a look, then one of them said softly, Ma'am, people lie online all the time. Just stay quiet, keep records, and don't engage. After they left, I collapsed onto the couch and sobbed. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go. It wasn't enough to ruin my reputation, now she wanted to turn me into a criminal. Hours passed before I stopped shaking. I sat in silence, staring at my dark computer screen. The folder labeled Project M seemed to glow from the desktop, mocking me. I thought about deleting everything, about pretending none of it had ever happened. And then, at exactly 1:47 a.m., a notification appeared in the corner of my screen. A new message. From Cypher. No greeting, no explanation, just one line. I'm back, and it's time you saw the video that ends this. That message was the first sign that everything was about to spiral beyond anything I could have imagined. They said someone had filed a harassment complaint against me. When the officer said those words, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. I stood frozen on my porch, clutching the edge of the doorframe to steady myself. The world suddenly felt blurry and unreal, like I was watching someone else's nightmare. A harassment complaint. Against me. I'd spent months staying silent, afraid to even comment online, and now, somehow, I was the one being accused. The officers had already been polite, almost apologetic. Ma'am, we just have to follow up, one of them said gently, holding a clipboard filled with printed screenshots. It's standard procedure. They showed me the evidence, fake emails, messages supposedly sent from burner accounts in my name. The messages were cruel, filled with threats and insults. I scanned them in disbelief. None of the writing even sounded like me. I hadn't written a single one. But the usernames were clever, slight variations of my real name, my photo pulled from old social media profiles. She faked these, I whispered, my throat dry. Brianna made them. The younger officer exchanged a look with his partner. Ma'am, we're not saying you did anything wrong. We're just telling you to be careful. If she escalates, we'll have to look deeper. When they left, I stood in the doorway, numb. It was like watching my own reputation being buried one accusation at a time. I didn't even know where to begin fighting back. That night, I sat at my dining table surrounded by papers, my laptop open to Cypher's old messages. I reread everything he'd sent me, the screenshots, the chats, the photos. My head spun. The evidence was there, but it had all been obtained illegally. If I showed it to anyone official, I'd be admitting I had contact with a hacker. No lawyer would touch that. Still, I needed guidance. The next morning, I finally called my attorney, a man named Robert I'd hired weeks ago when this all began. His voice was calm but weary. Janine, I understand this has been traumatic, he said, but you need to stay quiet. Don't contact her. Don't reply online. Can verify the harassment is false. We'll handle it legally. I have proof, I told him desperately. Files. Screenshots. Videos. Someone helped me collect them. Someone? He asked sharply. Who? I hesitated. I couldn't tell him about Cypher, not when I didn't even know who Cypher really was. Just someone who wanted to help, I said finally. Robert sighed. If that evidence was obtained without consent or through hacking, we can't use it. It'll backfire. I wanted to scream. I had mountains of proof, but none of it mattered in court. I was trapped between truth and legality, a web Brianna had spun so tightly I could barely breathe inside it. That afternoon, I opened my journal and began to write everything down. Dates, messages, details, every strange encounter. It was the only control I had left. I told myself that if anything ever happened to me, that notebook would tell the truth. I didn't hear from Cypher for 3 long days. I tried to distract myself with small chores, cleaning the kitchen, watering the plants, rereading old novels, but nothing helped. My mind was a storm. Then, late one evening, as I sat in bed staring at the dark window, my phone buzzed. A message notification. I snatched it up so fast my hands trembled. It was him. Cypher. Sorry for the silence. The message read. I had to make sure I wasn't being traced. I exhaled shakily. The police came. I wrote back. She filed a complaint. They think I'm harassing her. There was a pause. Then his reply came. I know. I saw the report. She's trying to bury you before I release what I found. I froze. What do you mean, saw the report? Let's just say I have access. I told you she's not as clean as she pretends. Everything she does leaves a trail. And I found something that even the police won't ignore. My pulse quickened. What did you find? A video. He wrote. A confession. It's not meant for the public. She sent it to someone she trusted and that someone wasn't careful. I blinked at the screen, heart hammering. What's in it? He didn't answer right away. The typing dots came and went, then vanished. For a moment I thought he'd disappeared again, but then the final message appeared. Let's just say she tells the truth when she thinks no one's watching. You'll want to see this, Janine. It changes everything. My throat went dry. I wanted to ask him to explain, but before I could, another notification popped up, a new file transfer. It was large, several gigabytes, labeled Confession, MP4. I hesitated before downloading it. My stomach churned with both dread and hope. I wanted to know what was inside, but I also feared it might destroy what was left of my son's marriage, and maybe even him. Cypher sent one last message before logging off. Don't share it yet. Watch it first. You'll understand what she's really capable of. The file finished downloading. I hovered over the play button for what felt like an eternity, the soft glow of the screen reflecting off my trembling hands. Part of me wanted to wait until morning to call my lawyer, to gather myself, but another part knew I couldn't rest without knowing. I clicked play. And as the video began to load, I had no idea that what I was about to see would shatter every illusion I had left about Brianna and the life I thought my son was living. The file was called Confession, MP4. The moment I clicked on it, the screen flickered to life, showing a dimly lit bedroom. I could tell it was Brianna's, the same floral wallpaper I'd helped her pick out last year when they moved in. The camera was shaky, like it had been recorded on a phone. At first, all I could see was her reflection in the vanity mirror. She was talking to someone off camera, her tone casual, almost amused. I turned the volume up. He totally believes it, she was saying, twirling a strand of her hair. Mark's convinced his mom's got mental issues. I told him I didn't feel safe around her anymore. My stomach twisted. She was laughing as she dismantled my life. The camera angle shifted slightly, and I saw more of the room, piles of clothes, ring lights, an open laptop on her bed. On the screen, I could make out what looked like a social media dashboard: metrics, likes, comments. She was tracking her engagement in real time. You should have seen the numbers, she continued, smiling proudly. The post about her stalking me got 20,000 shares in 3 hours. I mean, I know it's evil, but hey, people eat it up. Her friend, the one holding the camera, giggled. You're seriously turning your mother-in-law into a villain arc? Brianna shrugged. It's content. People love the evil mill trope. I just gave them a real one. I couldn't breathe. I pressed pause and covered my mouth, staring at her frozen image on the screen. My daughter-in-law, the woman I'd cooked for, hugged, trusted, was sitting there confessing everything, and she was proud of it. I hit play again, trembling. She's perfect for it, Brianna went on. She's polite, quiet, never posts anything online. People will always believe the louder one, and that's me. I mean, if she wanted a fair fight, she should have gotten a TikTok account. She laughed. A cruel, hollow sound. But don't worry. I'm not gonna let it get too dark. Just enough drama to keep my followers hooked. Her friend asked something I couldn't hear, and Brianna leaned closer to the camera. Oh. And guess what? She gave me money for my businesses, told me she wanted to support my career. I used it to pay off my credit card. I might tell Mark it went toward equipment or something. I froze. Money? I had given her money. A small loan. A few $100s to help her start her own design business. She'd looked me in the eyes when she thanked me. Now I felt sick. The recording continued for several minutes, each line slicing deeper. She talked about manipulating Mark, pretending to cry, accusing him of taking his mother's side whenever he questioned her stories. She even mentioned how she'd staged certain photos to make it look like I'd shown up uninvited. People don't need proof, she said. They just need emotion. When the video finally ended, the screen went black. I sat in silence, my pulse thundering in my ears. For a long time, I didn't move. Then I noticed a second file had appeared in the folder automatically downloaded alongside the first. It was labeled Confession 2, MP4. I opened it hesitantly. This one was shorter, but what I saw made my skin crawl. It was a screen recording, a private conversation between Brianna and someone from her influencer group, Influencer HQ. In the video, she was discussing content strategy. So what's next? The voice on the other end asked. I'm thinking the big reveal, Brianna said. I'll say I confronted her, and she screamed at me in public. Maybe at a grocery store or something. It'll sound dramatic. Plus, it'll give me an excuse to move away from my mental health. Perfect way to end the season. Season. She called my pain a season. The video ended abruptly. My whole body was shaking by then. I didn't even realize I was crying until a tear hit my keyboard. Cypher's message popped up seconds later. Now you understand. I typed furiously. How did you get this? Why didn't you tell me sooner? His reply came almost instantly. Because now it's time to act. You can't expose her yet. If you post it, she'll delete everything and spin it as deepfake footage. We need timing. Timing for what? I asked. For when she incriminates herself further. She's planning something. She told one of her sponsors you've been harassing her again. She's setting up another post to boost engagement. Let her. When she does, that's when we drop the proof. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to steady my breathing. It was madness every bit of it, but he was right about one thing. She was predictable. She'd built her entire persona around playing the victim. It was only a matter of time before she struck again. I'll trust you, I typed slowly. But please, don't disappear again. I won't, he replied. But brace yourself. She's not stupid. She'll fight back. He was right. Because less than 24 hours later, Brianna uploaded a new video, one that would send my world spinning all over again. And this time, she didn't just accuse me of being a bad person, she called me dangerous. Brianna uploaded a new video titled, My Mother-in-Law is Dangerous. I remember the moment vividly, a Saturday morning, soft sunlight streaming through the kitchen blinds, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. I hadn't even opened social media, but my phone began buzzing non-stop. Notifications from neighbors, old coworkers, and even distant relatives flooded in. One message from my friend Denise simply said, You need to see this right now. My stomach dropped. I opened Facebook, and there it was, a video of Brianna. Her face pale and eyes red, sitting on her couch like some tragic heroine in a movie. Her voice trembled just enough to sound convincing as she said, I never wanted it to come to this, but I'm scared for my life. I pressed play, my heart pounding. I tried to be patient, she said tearfully, but my mother-in-law won't stop. She's been harassing me, following me, and even trying to hack my accounts. I've gone to the police, and I just hope they can protect us before something terrible happens. I froze. Hack her accounts? She was flipping everything, turning her own crimes into accusations against me. Then she leaned closer to the camera, lowering her voice. She's obsessed with destroying me. I think she's unstable. If anything happens to me, I just want people to know it was her. My coffee slipped from my hand, splattering across the table. I could barely breathe. Within minutes, the video had tens of thousands of views. The comments were an avalanche of sympathy, people offering donations, calling me a monster, sharing the video across multiple platforms. Stay strong, Brianna. She deserves to be locked up. Evil mothers-in-law are real, this proves it. Every word felt like another nail in the coffin of my reputation. My lawyer called within the hour. Janine, Robert said, his voice tight. Do not post or respond publicly. Anything you say can be twisted. Let the storm pass. We'll prepare a statement. But I couldn't think logically anymore. My whole body was shaking. She wasn't just smearing my name now, she was painting me as a threat, a criminal, a ticking time bomb. By noon, Mark was at my door. He didn't even knock. He just stormed in, holding his phone like it was a weapon. His eyes were wild. Mom, he said, his voice breaking. What the hell did you do? Nothing, I cried. Mark, you have to believe me. He cut me off. She has screenshots, Mom. Messages. Emails, she showed me everything. They're fake, I shouted, the desperation raw in my throat. She's been lying to you, to everyone. She's the one. He slammed his hand on the table. Stop it, just stop it. She's my wife. I felt something inside me crumble. He didn't even want to hear it. Not one word. His loyalty was ironclad, blind, unwavering. I could see it in his eyes. Brianna had poisoned him completely. He left after 10 minutes, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I sank to the floor, sobbing into my hands. My own son thought I was capable of destroying his wife. And in a way, I realized she had succeeded not just online, but in real life too. That evening, as darkness fell over the quiet neighborhood, I sat in my living room surrounded by the hum of silence. Every shadow felt like judgment. Every memory of family dinners and laughter now tasted like betrayal. I opened my laptop and went to check Cypher's messages, but his profile was gone again. Deleted. No warning, no trace. I felt the cold sting of panic rise in my chest. Had she found him? Had she silenced him too? For a moment, I wondered if he had ever been real at all. Maybe I'd been grasping at digital ghosts in my desperation to make sense of the madness. But then, as I scrolled through my inbox, I noticed something strange. A draft email I hadn't written. The subject line read, "Do not ignore this." My heart raced as I clicked it open. There was no recipient, no sender, just an attachment. The file name was Hidden Truth Zip. My fingers hovered over the mouse. Should I open it? Every instinct screamed no. But the part of me that needed closure, that needed truth, overpowered my fear. I clicked. Inside the folder were dozens of files, some I recognized from Cypher's earlier drops, but others were new. Screenshots of private transactions, photos of Brianna with people I'd never seen before, and a series of emails between her and a marketing consultant she referred to as EL. I opened one. It was a payment confirmation for $10,000 supposedly from a brand partnership, but the account it was deposited into wasn't the company's. It was one of Brianna's secret accounts, under a fake business name. As I read, realization dawned on me. These were the missing pieces the proof Cypher had hinted at. He must have queued the files to send automatically if something happened to him. I scrolled through every file, heart racing, until I reached the final one, a video titled, Transfer, Night. When I played it, my breath caught. It was surveillance footage, grainy, but clear enough to make out Brianna's face. She was in a parking lot, meeting a man in a hoodie, just like in the mysterious photo I'd received earlier. She handed him an envelope and received a stack of cash. This wasn't just about social media lies anymore, this was real crime. I sat there trembling, watching her image flicker on the screen. The pieces finally connected. The influencer scams, the fake sponsorships, the secret transfers she was laundering money. For the first time, I felt something that wasn't fear. It was resolve. Cypher might be gone, but he'd given me the final key to exposing her. And as I stared at that video, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore, even if it meant destroying what was left of my family. It was an encrypted zip file titled Eclipse. The name alone made my stomach turn. It sat in my email drafts folder, waiting like a ghostly trap something Cypher must have placed there before disappearing. I stared at it for a long time, debating whether I should open it. After all, every new piece of truth so far had cost me more peace than I could afford to lose. But I couldn't walk away now. Not when Brianna had turned my life into her stage play and cast me as the villain. I clicked the file. A password prompt appeared. For a second, I panicked, thinking I was locked out. Then I noticed a tiny note in the email's body. Password 0307. I typed it in my son's birthday. Cypher had known that somehow. The folder opened to reveal more documents, screenshots, and audio files. But one subfolder caught my eye immediately. Aliases. My heart pounded as I clicked it. Inside was a list of names, none of them familiar, but all connected to the same woman, Brianna. I opened one file and froze. It was a passport scan, her photo, but under a different name, Elena Moore. There were also digital copies of IDs, bank applications, and fake tax documents, all tied to that alias. In another folder, I found screenshots of emails she'd sent using multiple fake addresses, posing as different people, assistants, brand reps, even her own managers. She wasn't just a manipulative influencer. She was an entire operation disguised as one woman. As I scrolled through the files, I realized what Cypher had hinted at all along. Brianna had been scamming brands, fans, and even my son under layers of fake identities. She'd set up dummy businesses to receive sponsorship funds, then transferred the money to her personal accounts. I opened one email thread between her and a marketing manager from a well-known beauty brand. "We've wired the deposit to your business account as discussed," the manager wrote. Brianna replied, "Thank you. Please expect product integration videos next week." The brand had paid her thousands, but there were no videos, no campaigns, nothing. She'd simply taken the money and vanished under another alias. Each file felt like a dagger of truth. Every click peeled back another layer of her deception. Finally, I found an audio file labeled Eclipse 3. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. The voice that filled my speakers made my blood run cold. It was Brianna's, confident, calm, but cold as stone. "If anyone ever finds out, I'll just say I was hacked," she said. "People believe victims. Always." I stopped the recording. My whole body trembled. There was no longer any doubt she was a calculated predator. But what could I do with this information? The police had already warned me. My lawyer couldn't use hacked evidence. And Mark still believed every lie she told. I paced my living room, running my hands through my hair. I couldn't just sit on this. Someone needed to see it, someone who could act. I called Robert, my lawyer, and asked him to meet me in person. When I showed him the files, he took off his glasses and sighed. "Janine," he said slowly, "this is a lot. And if even half of this is legitimate, she's in deep trouble." "So you believe me?" I asked, my voice cracking. He hesitated. "I believe something criminal is going on here. But we can't bring this to the police ourselves, it needs to be anonymous. Or it could backfire on you. Let me handle this quietly." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. I gave him the flash drive with everything Cypher had gathered, and he promised to pass it through the proper channels discreetly. Days turned into a tense blur. I barely slept, jumping at every phone call, every knock on the door. I didn't know if Brianna suspected anything yet, but she must have felt something changing. Her online activity slowed down. Her videos grew shorter, less confident. Then one afternoon, Robert called. "Janine," he said. "I can't give details, but someone's looking into this." Quietly. "You did the right thing." The following week, I started noticing whispers online. Posts disappearing. Comments vanishing from her pages. Then a cryptic thread appeared in one of the influencer gossip forums, someone claiming that a beloved content creator was under federal investigation for fraud and identity theft. I didn't dare comment, but my heart pounded as I read through it. The pieces were falling into place. 2 days later, a black car parked across from my house. It didn't move for hours. I told myself it was nothing, a coincidence, but deep down, I knew. This was bigger than I ever realized. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the faint reflection of my own tired face in the dark window. Then I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, Mark stood there. His face was pale, his eyes red. He held his phone out toward me, his hands shaking. "Mom," he whispered. "You were right." I blinked, confused. "Mark." He cut me off, his voice trembling. "Someone leaked everything. The videos, the messages, all of it, it's all over the internet." I took his phone and stared at the screen. Brianna's face filled it, crying, begging for forgiveness in a live stream. The truth was out. Cypher's prophecy had come true. And as I watched her perfect world start to crumble, I realized this was only the beginning, because when liars fall, they drag everyone down with them. He'd finally seen the truth. When Mark showed up at my door that night, his face said it all. Gone was the anger, the blind loyalty, the wall of disbelief that had separated us for so long. What replaced it was devastation, the kind that comes only when the world you thought was real collapses around you. I let him in, my hands trembling as I gestured toward the couch. He didn't speak at first. He just sat down, staring blankly at his phone, replaying the same video over and over again. I sat beside him, my heart pounding as I realized what he was watching. It was Brianna, the same confession video Cypher had sent me weeks ago. Somehow, it had been leaked online. The internet had turned on her overnight. The same followers who once worshipped her were now tearing her apart in the comments. Words like fraud, liar, and scammer flooded every post. Influencer pages were dissecting every lie she'd told, comparing screenshots, uncovering fake sponsorships. It was chaos, and this time, she was the villain. Mark rubbed his temples, his voice hoarse. I didn't want to believe it," he said. "She told me those videos were edited, that someone was framing her. But then I saw the timestamps, the voice, the way she laughs." He trailed off, his throat tightening. "She was laughing about you." I reached out slowly, placing my hand on his. For the first time in months, he didn't pull away. "I tried to tell you," I whispered. "I tried so hard." He nodded, eyes brimming with tears. "I know. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I was blind." We sat there in silence for a while, just a mother and son surrounded by months of wreckage. The house was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Every so often, his phone would buzz again. Another notification about Brianna trending online. He turned to me suddenly. "Did you know about the money?" My heart skipped. "What money?" He looked down, ashamed. "I checked my accounts this morning. Over $15,000 transferred out over the last 6 months. She said it was for business stuff, equipment, contracts, brand deals. But now I see the accounts don't even exist." I felt sick. She'd not only manipulated him emotionally, she'd robbed him financially. Mark buried his face in his hands. "She used me. Every single day, she used me. I thought she loved me, Mom." I didn't know what to say. There were no words that could soften that kind of pain. So I just sat beside him, silent, letting him cry. After a while, he straightened up, his face hardening. "I'm going to the police," he said quietly. "She's not getting away with this." "Good," I replied softly. "And Mark, you're not alone in this. We'll get through it together." He nodded, then stood up and began pacing, the weight of the truth settling over him. I can't believe how many people believed her lies. My friends, my coworkers, even my boss reached out to ask if I was okay. She made me look like a helpless husband stuck between 2 women at war. "She's good at playing the victim," I said. "She knows exactly what people want to see." He looked over at me, eyes full of guilt. "And I let her do it. I let her destroy your name, Mark," I said, taking his hand again. "You were under her spell. That's what manipulators do, they make you doubt the people who love you most. But you're awake now. That's what matters." For the first time in the matter over 5 months, I saw a flicker of my son again, the boy who used to call me every Sunday, the one who'd once trusted me completely. He smiled weakly. "You still call me your son after all this?" "Always," I whispered. "You're my son no matter what she tried to make you believe." He laughed softly through his tears, then exhaled. "The police are going to have a field day with this. I already talked to Robert earlier. He said the investigators got an anonymous evidence packet, videos, bank transfers, the whole thing. Whoever sent it, they've basically built the case for them. I froze. An anonymous packet? That had to be Cypher. He'd done it. Somehow. Even after disappearing, he'd kept his word. Mark noticed my silence. What is it? I hesitated, then shook my head. Nothing. Just relief. He frowned slightly but didn't press. We spent the rest of the night watching the story unfold online. News outlets picked it up by midnight. Influencer exposed for fabricated abuse story. The headlines read. Others went deeper, social media star accused of fraud and identity theft. Brianna tried to fight back at first, posting a tearful video claiming she'd been set up, but the internet wasn't buying it this time. Screenshots, bank statements, and video clips were circulating everywhere. The truth was undeniable. By morning, her accounts were gone, deleted. Mark sat at my kitchen table, staring into his coffee. I don't even know where she is, he said quietly. She turned off her phone, but part of me doesn't want to find out. She'll have to face what she's done eventually, I said. People like her always do. He nodded. And for the first time in months, there was peace, fragile, uncertain, but real. Then, as I reached for my phone to check the morning news, a notification popped up on the screen. A breaking headline. Local social media influencer arrested on multiple fraud charges. I clicked it, and there she was, Brianna, handcuffed, being led out of her apartment by 2 officers. Mark's eyes widened as he read over my shoulder. His lips parted, but no words came out. She's really gone, he whispered finally. It's over. I wanted to believe that, but a chill crept down my spine. Because if there was one thing I'd learned in this nightmare, it was that endings were rarely clean. And when another alert flashed across the screen, a name I hadn't seen in days, my blood ran cold. Cypher had sent me a new message. Brianna had been arrested. When I saw her name plastered across every news headline, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't even feel relief. I felt hollow, like something inside me had been scraped clean. For months, I'd been gaslit, humiliated, accused of things I didn't do. I'd lost friends, colleagues, and the respect of people I'd known for years. And now, finally, the truth was out, but it didn't bring me the peace I'd imagined. Mark sat beside me on the couch, gripping his phone as we watched the footage playing on the local news station. The camera panned across Brianna's apartment complex, yellow police tape fluttering in the wind. Reporters were shouting questions as officers guided her, handcuffed into the back of a police car. Her once glamorous hair was disheveled, and her makeup streaked down her face. Social media influencer Brianna Keller has been taken into custody this morning following an ongoing investigation into multiple counts of fraud, defamation, and identity theft, the reporter said crisply. Authorities confirm they are reviewing evidence of falsified financial documents and fabricated online abuse claims. I looked away from the screen. I couldn't watch anymore. Mark rubbed his forehead, his voice barely above a whisper. I can't believe I married her. She fooled everyone, I said softly. That's what people like her do. They build illusions so convincing that even the smartest among us can't see the cracks. He nodded, staring down at the floor. I feel like my whole life was a lie. Every smile, every I love you, it all feels scripted now. I wanted to comfort him, but I didn't know how. What words could possibly ease the pain of realizing the person you loved most had never really existed? The news anchor's voice droned in the background, listing the charges against her. Fraud, defamation, extortion. I felt sick just hearing them. Each word was another reminder of how deeply she'd entangled herself in deception and how many people she'd hurt along the way. That night, my inbox began to fill up. Old coworkers, neighbors, and even some of my former students wrote to me, apologizing for believing her lies. We're so sorry, Mrs. Lawson, one message read. We should have known better. Another said, you didn't deserve what she did to you. I hope you're okay. I should have felt vindicated, but I didn't. All those apologies came too late. The damage had already been done. Mark stayed with me for a few days after the arrest. We didn't talk much, we just existed in quiet understanding. He slept on the couch, haunted by the memories of his marriage. I'd catch him sometimes staring out the window at nothing, lost in thought. On the third day, I decided to delete all my social media accounts. I couldn't stand to see my name or hers pop up again. The internet had been a battlefield and I was done fighting. I wanted peace, even if it meant erasing my online presence completely. I was halfway through the process when my email pinged with a new message. The sender's name made my heart skip a beat. Cipher. The subject line was short. Justice isn't over yet. I froze, staring at the screen. My mind raced. How was he still contacting me? How had he even known about the arrest so quickly? The body of the email contained a single sentence. There's more to her story and more people involved than you realize. Attached was a single link. I hovered over it but didn't click. Every warning bell in my head went off. After everything that had happened, the idea of opening another file terrified me. But the curiosity, the same stubborn need to understand that had driven me this far, wouldn't let me ignore it. Mark noticed me staring at the screen. "Mom, what's that?" I hesitated. "It's from him." His brow furrowed. "Cipher? You're still talking to that guy?" "I wasn't," I said. "He disappeared. But now, he's back." Mark frowned, clearly uneasy. "Don't open it. Whatever it is, just let it go. Brianna's behind bars. It's over." He was right. It should have been over. But something about that message, that line about more people involved, gnawed at me. After Mark went to bed, I sat alone in the living room. The only light coming from my laptop screen. I stared at the link for a long time, my cursor hovering over it. My heart pounded. I knew I should delete it. I knew nothing good would come from following Cipher deeper into whatever this was. And yet, I clicked. The link opened to a private server, a dark, minimalist page with a single folder titled Archive Truth. Inside was a document labeled Origins. My pulse quickened as I opened it. It wasn't about Brianna. It was about Cipher. Lines of chat logs scrolled down the page, old messages between him and Brianna, dated years before she'd ever met my son. My hands trembled as I realized what I was reading. They weren't strangers. They weren't even enemies in the beginning. They'd once been lovers, partners, collaborators. The messages painted a chilling picture, two ambitious people scheming together to manipulate algorithms, fake drama, and boost engagement. But something had gone wrong. The last few exchanges turned bitter. Accusations, betrayal, revenge. And then the final message from Cipher to Brianna: "If you betray me, I'll destroy you, and everyone who trusts you." I leaned back, my heart pounding in my chest. So that was his motive all along. It wasn't justice, it was vengeance. I'd been his pawn in a war I didn't even know existed. The cursor blinked at the end of the document, and then almost as if on cue, a new message appeared at the bottom of the screen. "You weren't supposed to see this yet." The text box flashed once and then vanished. I gasped, slamming the laptop shut. The room went dark, silent except for the pounding of my heart. And in that suffocating darkness, I realized Cipher was never done with me. He was still out there, still watching. And whatever came next, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The link led to a hidden chat archive and I recognized Cipher's real name. It was almost midnight when I opened the document again, my hands trembling over the keyboard. I don't even know why I did it. Maybe it was morbid curiosity. Or maybe I just couldn't stand not knowing who had been pulling the strings in my life from behind a screen. But as the chat archive loaded, line by line, a name appeared, one I'd never expected to see. Ethan Laird. Cipher's real name was Ethan. I sat back, staring at it, the realization washing over me in slow, sickening waves. I didn't know him personally, but I'd heard the name before. Months ago, when Brianna had first married Mark, she'd once mentioned an ex-fiancé, a tech guy who'd gone crazy after she left him. She said he'd tried to hack her accounts, spread rumors about her online, and destroy her budding career. At the time, I'd believed her. Of course I had. She'd painted him as a jealous, obsessive man who couldn't handle being left behind. But now, as I read their old messages, the truth became horrifyingly clear. Ethan wasn't just some unstable ex. He was Cypher, the messages. Between them were cold, manipulative, almost businesslike at first. They talked about building engagement, orchestrating narrative arcs, and controlling public perception. They were co-conspirators, partners in deception. Together, they'd created viral content built entirely on lies. But as their messages went on, I saw the shift. It started with jealousy, then resentment, then open hatred. Brianna had cheated him out of money, stolen his digital marketing accounts, and leaked his private data to ruin him professionally. She'd done to him what she would later do to me: weaponize the internet, twist public opinion, and destroy someone's life. And when he'd said, "If you betray me, I'll destroy you," he meant it literally. My stomach turned. So this whole time, Cypher hadn't helped me out of compassion or morality. He'd used me as the perfect vehicle for his revenge. He'd chosen me because I was her weak spot, the one person whose suffering could unravel everything she'd built. I closed the file, my pulse pounding in my ears. The room felt smaller, darker. I looked around as though I expected to see him lurking in the shadows, watching through my webcam or reading my messages as I typed. I wanted to scream. I opened my email and began typing a message to him. My fingers flew over the keys. "Who are you really, Ethan? Why did you use me? Were you ever planning to tell me the truth?" I hit send before I could stop myself. Minutes passed. Nothing. Then, the typing indicator appeared. "You weren't supposed to find that yet," he wrote. "But it doesn't change what she did to you." I glared at the screen. "You could have told me. You let me believe you were some anonymous Good Samaritan." He responded instantly. "Would you have trusted me if I told you I was her ex? You would have deleted everything and kept suffering. I did what was necessary." "Necessary?" I typed back furiously. "You turned my life into a battleground for your revenge. You were already in a war you didn't start," he replied. "I just gave you the ammunition to win." I stared at his words, feeling the weight of their cold logic. As twisted as it sounded, he wasn't entirely wrong. Without him, I never would have uncovered the truth about Brianna. But that didn't make him innocent. He had manipulated me as much as she had, just in a different way. "What happens now?" I typed. "Now," he replied, "you move on. She's finished. The rest doesn't concern you." "Doesn't concern me?" I typed, my anger rising. "You used my life as part of your revenge plot, and now you want me to walk away like none of this happened?" "Yes," came his reply. "Because if you dig any deeper, you'll find things you don't want to know." The message window flickered for a moment, and then his profile icon disappeared again. Account deleted. I sat there for a long time, my screen blank, my thoughts louder than the silence in the room. I didn't know whether to feel grateful or violated. Without him, I might still be living under Brianna's lies. But because of him, I'd become a pawn in a digital vendetta that had nothing to do with me. The next morning, I called my lawyer, Robert, and told him everything or almost everything. I left out Ethan's name, but I admitted that I'd been in contact with someone who'd helped me gather evidence. He was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "Janine, you should be careful. People like that don't just disappear. They always have leverage." "I know," I whispered. He was right. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "You're safe now. She can't hurt you anymore." No name, no profile. Just those words. My skin crawled. I deleted the message immediately, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that followed me on the rest of the night. I pulled my curtains shut, unplugged my laptop, and sat in bed staring at the ceiling. Everything was over. Brianna was in custody, the lies were exposed. The world finally knew the truth. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was still watching me. And when a plain white envelope arrived in my mailbox a week later, unmarked and sealed with a single word written across it, "Closure," I realized the story wasn't finished. The envelope was unmarked. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note. My heart began to race the moment I saw it. There was no return address, no postage label, just my name written neatly on the front in black ink. I stood on the porch for a long time, staring at it, debating whether to even touch it. After everything that had happened, I didn't trust surprises anymore. But curiosity, that old, dangerous friend, won again. I brought the envelope inside and laid it on the kitchen table. The note inside was brief, written in the same deliberate handwriting as the address. It said, "Foreclosure," from Cypher. For a moment, I thought about throwing it away. He'd already lied to me, used me, and vanished twice. I didn't owe him anything. But then I looked at the small, silver USB drive sitting next to the note, so innocent-looking, yet humming with the weight of what it might contain. I plugged it into my laptop, my pulse thudding in my ears. A single folder appeared on the screen. Final Truth. Inside was one video file. I hesitated, then pressed play. Brianna's face filled the screen. She was sitting in what looked like a hotel room, her hair pulled back, no makeup, her eyes red and swollen. The timestamp showed it had been recorded just a week before her arrest. For the first 30 seconds, she didn't speak. She just stared into the camera, breathing heavily, like she was working up the courage to start. Then, finally, she whispered, "If anyone ever sees this, it means everything fell apart." My chest tightened. Her voice was shaky, almost unrecognizable. "I don't know where to begin," she said. I lied. About everything. About Janine, about Mark, about my entire life. It started as content, something to get clicks, sympathy, a following. But once it started working, I couldn't stop. The lies got bigger, the stories darker. People loved it. They wanted villains, and Janine. She paused, rubbing her forehead. She was perfect for it. My stomach turned. I didn't hate her, Brianna continued. Not at first. But when the followers came, I realized pain sold better than happiness. And if I wanted to keep them, I had to keep giving them drama. So I twisted things, edited videos, made her look like the monster. I told myself it was harmless, that it was just entertainment. She gave a hollow laugh. But it wasn't harmless, was it? Her voice cracked. For the first time, I saw something I'd never seen in her before: remorse. "I ruined her life," she whispered. "And for what? Sponsors? Views? Validation from strangers?" She shook her head. "I thought I was in control. But I wasn't, not after Ethan came back." At the mention of his name, I leaned closer to the screen. "He said he'd help me get famous again," she said, wiping her eyes. "He told me he forgave me for what I did to him, that he wanted to even the score. I believed him. I let him back in. But he never forgave me. He set me up. He leaked everything. Used me to destroy myself. I thought I was manipulating him, but he was always one step ahead." Her hands trembled. "He told me he was helping my mother-in-law, that he wanted to save her. I didn't realize he was using her as bait, as his way of getting revenge on me. And now it's too late to fix any of it." My heart pounded in my chest. I felt sick. Every thread of this story, every lie, every secret, tied back to the same two people. Both had used me for their own purposes, and now here I was, watching the fallout play out like some tragic film I never wanted to be part of. Brianna leaned forward, her face filling the frame. "Janine, if you ever see this," she swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. Truly, you didn't deserve what I did. None of this started because of you. You were just convenient." Her voice cracked again. "I thought I could control the truth. I thought I could create my own reality online. But the thing about lies is they rot everything, even the person telling them." Tears welled in my eyes. I'd imagined this moment so many times, her apology, her regret, but it didn't feel satisfying. It just hurt. The video ended abruptly, the screen going black. I sat there for a long time, staring at my reflection in the monitor, trying to process what I'd just seen. I ejected the drive and placed it on the table. I wanted to hate her, to throw it away and pretend I hadn't heard a single word. But I couldn't. Her voice, that trembling, broken confession, kept echoing in my mind. The next morning, I brought the USB to Robert. I told him everything. He listened quietly, his face pale. When the video ended, he exhaled and said, "This will make the case airtight. She'll have no room to claim manipulation now." The authorities accepted the file as additional evidence. Within weeks, Brianna's plea deal was finalized. She confessed to everything: fraud, identity theft, online defamation, and was sentenced to prison time. The media eventually moved on. The frenzy died down, replaced by the next scandal, the next viral villain. But I never forgot. Mark started therapy, trying to rebuild his sense of self. He apologized to me again and again, until I finally told him to stop. We were both victims of the same poison. I began volunteering at a women's support center, helping others who'd been manipulated, gaslit, or targeted online. It gave me purpose, something to fill the silence that followed the storm. For a while, it felt like peace was possible. I learned that truth doesn't erase pain, but it lets you breathe again. I stopped checking social media, stopped waiting for the next disaster. Then, one night, as I was shutting down my laptop, a new notification appeared in the corner of the screen. It wasn't from Cypher. At least, not under that name. A new username I'd never seen before. Just 2 words, The Watcher. And the message read, "You think it's over? You only saw half the story." That was when I realized peace was just another illusion. The message simply said, "I did what you couldn't. You're free now." The words appeared on my screen at 2:03 a.m. I'd been half asleep on the couch, the soft glow of the television painting the living room in flickering shadows. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. But when I sat up and rubbed my eyes, the message was still there, one unread notification from an anonymous sender. No profile picture, no name, just those 7 chilling words. I stared at the screen, frozen. It had been months since I'd heard from Cypher or Ethan, as I now knew him. Brianna was already in prison, serving her sentence. The world had moved on, and I was finally beginning to heal. So why was he reaching out now? My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed, "Who is this?" But before I could press send, the account vanished. Deleted. Just like all the others. The quiet that followed was heavy. I sat there for a long time. The blue glow of the monitor casting eerie shadows across the walls. The words replayed in my head. "You're free now." Free from what? From Brianna? From him? Or from the truth? I shut the laptop and leaned back, closing my eyes. For the first time in what felt like years, I let myself breathe. The next morning, I made a decision. I unplugged every piece of technology I owned, my phone, my computer, even the Wi-Fi router. I needed distance. I needed peace. Mark came over later that day. He looked better, stronger, calmer. The dark circles under his eyes had faded, and there was a new steadiness in his voice. "Mom," he said softly, "it's finally over. She pled guilty to everything. You can move on now." I smiled weakly. "I know. I'm trying." He nodded, then hesitated. I was thinking, maybe it's time we start new traditions. Just you and me. No more ghosts from the past. That made me smile for real. For the first time, I saw a future that wasn't overshadowed by pain. We spent the afternoon cooking together, laughing, reminiscing, finding small pieces of normal again. When he left, I stood in the doorway, watching him drive away. The autumn wind carried the scent of leaves and rain, and for once, I felt still. Over the next few weeks, life began to settle. The local news moved on to other stories. My neighbors stopped whispering, and people in town greeted me with warmth again. I even received a letter from one of my former students, thanking me for teaching her what real resilience looks like. It felt good, not the loud, triumphant kind of good, but the quiet, steady kind that seeps in after a storm. I started writing again, keeping a journal about everything I'd been through. I didn't know what I'd do with it, maybe publish it someday, maybe just keep it for myself, but it helped me process the chaos that had nearly broken me. Every so often, though, I'd catch myself glancing at my laptop, half expecting another message from him. The fear never fully left. There were nights when I'd wake up thinking I heard typing in the next room, or the faint buzz of a notification that wasn't really there. But each morning, I reminded myself it was over. Weeks turned into months. Mark began dating again. Cautiously this time. I met the woman once, a kind, quiet teacher named Elise, who looked at him with real warmth. Seeing him smile without shadows behind his eyes brought tears to mine. Maybe this was healing. Maybe we'd both survived the worst. One afternoon, while cleaning out my desk, I found the old USB drive Cypher had sent, the one with Brianna's confession. I held it in my hand for a long time, then finally walked it out to the backyard and threw it into the fire pit. I watched the plastic curl and melt. Black smoke twisting into the air like a ghost leaving its shell. "Good riddance," I whispered. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in months. No nightmares. No noise. Just silence. The next morning, as sunlight spilled through the curtains, I made myself coffee and sat by the window, notebook in hand. I began to write my final entry. The truth has a way of surviving, even when people try to bury it. I lost nearly everything to lies, my reputation, my peace, my trust. But somehow, through it all, I found myself again. I'm not the same woman I was before, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe scars are just proof we lived through the storm. I closed the notebook and smiled. For once, I meant every word. Then, as I reached to sip my coffee, my laptop, the one I hadn't used in weeks, lit up across the room. The screen flickered, then steadied. A single window was open. No browser, no application, just a black screen with white text. It read, "The story's not over, Janine." My hands went cold. I walked slowly toward the computer, my breath shallow. The cursor blinked once, then a new line appeared. "You were never just a victim. You were part of it." I froze. My reflection stared back from the dark screen, pale and wide-eyed. "Who are you?" I whispered. The cursor blinked again, 3 dots, as if someone was typing a response. Then, suddenly, the screen went black. I stood there in the silence, my heart pounding. For the first time, I wasn't sure if Cypher was gone or if he'd simply changed his name again. I turned off the computer, locked it in the drawer, and stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The world was quiet, peaceful, real. I closed my eyes and whispered to the wind. No more secrets. But somewhere deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was still watching from the dark.